Welcome, Gunrunner.
Hello everybody, Q&A the Laird here, and I have a review this week that all the regular viewers of my channel would have been expecting, because I did indeed post on YouTube and various social media channels that I had acquired these two lovely catalogues just here that I've been after for some time. Nice versions of them. I had them as a kid. And I really wanted to get them again. I really thought I had a Lynx Log 2 as well, but I spent ages going through all my stuff and I couldn't find one anywhere. So I don't know what happened to that. I was sure I had one, either misremembering because I had one when I was younger, or I've lost it somewhere. But there was someone selling both together on eBay. And I managed, and I didn't have one. I'd never had one, the first one. So I was really excited to pick them both up, and I got them for a really good price. I was actually surprised how easily and cheaply I acquired them. Actually, I thought they would be much more sought after than they were, considering how they never seem to come up. Every time I've looked, I've never seen them. I had even had a search set up, and they just never came up, and that's probably had that search set up several years. So there we go. So yes, we've got Lynx Log 1 and Lynx Log 2, as you can see. So we'll have a look at Lynx Log 1 first. This one is much smaller and not quite as good for many reasons, which I will go into. But interesting nonetheless. So let's start off. I mean, the cover on this isn't so good because all the background boxes have obviously been stretched vertically, and the Lynx logo has been stretched vertically at the top, and it looks a bit rubbish. Now, actually, I'm going to mention at this point, there's an interesting story behind both these Lynx logs, which may surprise a few people, actually, to learn. Now, the story goes that both of these were actually produced as a kind of cooperative thing between Atari and EGM magazine, the very famous electronic gaming monthly from the US. Because, funnily enough, when Atari set up a new games development studio quite early on in the Lynx's life in a place called Lombard, Illinois, which is near Chicago, and actually the studio was originally set up to develop games for what would become the Atari Genesis, which is a story I've talked about on my channel before. But it ended up being mainly a Lynx development studio. They did develop some STE games there, and so yeah, not all Lynx, but mostly Lynx. And EGM's office was also in Lombard, Illinois, apparently just round the corner. So they got to know each other quite well, because EGM would pop into Atari's offices to see what they were working on, obviously to cover it in the magazine and stuff. And they came up with the concept of doing this Lynx magazine. I'm not sure if it was ever given away with EGM. It may have been. But I mean, when I got Lynx Log 2 back in the day, I picked it up from a game shop. There was a little independent game shop in Hemel Hempstead in the marketplace. Actually, I've got a viewer who watches my channel who remembers it really well. And I was talking to him about it fairly recently. So yeah, they had there was a little independent there, and they had a stack of these, and I picked up about 100 of them. I wish I was joking. Every time I went in there, I picked up another stack of them. I had so many of them at home, because I used to cut the screenshots out of them and stuff, and use them to make. Me and my friend made our own. We used to make our own magazines, which was quite good fun. So we cut the screenshots out of magazines to make them. Anyway, I digress. But Lynx Log 1 I never saw any Lynx Log 2, but it was developed by EGM, and actually, when you look at certain assets of it, it's you can kind of see it actually that it's probably made by EGM, because of the similar things like fonts and design. I didn't even spot it until I heard the EGM story. It's one of my cats trying to come onto camera. I'm trying to stop him, but he's very insistent. This is Jasper. He's absolutely huge, as you can see, because he's a Norwegian forest cat. So, no, don't climb on them, Jasper cat. He's a big boy. Very big boy, but stunning to look at. So, there we go. Yeah, so that's the EGM story. So, let's have a look at the first one. So it says the free official guide to all available Lynx games plus many that are in development. It says on the front there, just says Lynx Log. And I think Jasper's trying to come back again. I think he's obsessed with climbing on these boxes, my Lynx boxes that I've set up. Box my Lynx 1 and Lynx 2. So it says the hottest games for the hottest handheld around. So it's got box arts, small descriptions of the games, and a screenshot of each one. So this is pretty standard stuff here, because I think this is the original, I'll say the original, the first 16 games, because for a long time there was this 16 games, the so-called Sweet 16, as many Lynx call it, because there was an advert, a very famous advert for the Lynx. I'll stick that advert up in the top right hand corner actually, so you can see it, because it's quite a famous advert that showed all the 16 games on it, and they ran that advert in all the UK press, in the US as well, so it was quite a well-known advert at the time, and it was the advert that was around when I got my Lynx, because I got my Lynx with Xenophobe, which was part of that so-called Sweet 16 lineups. That's all of them there, 1 2 3 4 5 6 8, yeah, 8 and 8, that's the Sweet 16. So I think that's about the time that this was made as well, but the fact that it starts off with that 16, I'd say that's the same time that this was made. I'm just wondering if it does show them in what order? It's alphabetical order. Okay. So I noticed that strangely, though it's alphabetical order, if you look, those are all launch games. Well, those first lot there. The California Games isn't there. I suppose because California Games is the pack-in. Yeah, of course. That's why it's confused me. California Games would have been the pack-in. But there we go. So that's that lot. Although I say that the Sweet 16 and California Games being the pack-in and all that, the cover does show a Lynx 2. So actually, this would have come probably in between those initial Sweet 16 adverts and the launch of the Lynx 2. And then it goes into new and future titles here. So somewhere in between there, because we've got Hard Drive in there, Rolling Thunder, which was never, of course, released. There is a prototype of it about now that you can acquire. There's hockey there, there's NFL football, Stun Runner, World Class Soccer, Turbo Sub, but Turbo Sub certainly wasn't released at this point, because this shows the early screenshots for Turbo Sub, which I remember seeing in Ray's magazine, which shows it being a third-person game and not first-person as the finished version ended up being. I actually like the look of it more like that, because obviously the game is a bit like Space Harrier, and yeah, and it looks more like it there. I actually preferred the look of it as a third-person. Maybe it would have been nice if they'd given the choice actually between the two, but there we go. I'm not sure the reason why they changed it. Toki there, Warbirds there, Vindicators, which of course wasn't released either. So early previous stuff like Rolling Thunder and Vindicators that never came out. But both Rolling Thunder and Vindicators had very troubled development cycles, where the original programmers left while the project was in development, and then it was assigned to new programmers who had issues. So that's why they both had major issues. Some more stuff. 720 wasn't released. Hydra, Robotron, which of course they're showing off as a third-party game, developed by William Shadowsoft. Scrap Your Dog APB, Lynx Casino, Pac-Land, Basket Brawl. So I bought Spill and Ted Golf, just called Golf, but it's easy to see that is in fact Awesome Golf, although it does look slightly different in that screenshot. Not quite the same, but near enough. But yeah, obviously Awesome Golf was a better name. They obviously hadn't quite decided what they were going to call it at that point. because another name we were going to call it was Golf Challenger at one point as well. It was listed as that. We've got Checkered Flag, we've got Viking Child, Grid Runner, which they actually changed, I assume, because Grid Runner was already used. It's a Jeff Minter game. Grid Runner is quite similar to Ball Blazer, but they renamed it Hyperdrome, and it was eventually released by Telegames. It's not that great a game, but it was eventually released by Telegames as an aftermarket release. Although the copyright on it suggests that it should have come out a lot earlier, so I'm not sure exactly why it never made it out the door as an Atari game, but there we go. Geo Jill down the bottom, which was never released either for some reason, which is a shame because it always looked like a absolute graphical tour de force. Looked pretty amazing. It's supposed to be basically a 3D version of the Tron Light Cycles game, famous one. Another third-party game there, Crystal Mines 2 by Color Dreams, the only Lynx game Color Dreams actually released. The others that they had planned, like Hellraiser, most notably, never came out because the company had a change of direction and became Wisdom Tree and started doing all religious stuff and decided that the Lynx didn't need any religious games. And Fidelity Ultimate Chess Challenge, which of course was the first third-party game for the Lynx released by Telegames. That's it. It's not very big. As I say, I just noticed though, as I say, I never saw this back in the day. This is a UK version of the magazine because on the back it says Atari Corp UK, Atari House Railway Terrace Slough. So these original Lynx logs obviously were distributed in the UK as well. I don't remember seeing them in the UK at all. So there we go. Obviously just not in the shops that I used to visit. So Lynx Log 2, this one's pretty obvious as being, this is more EGM's polish on this, as you'll see. So got this great win great game prizes inside, and then it's kind of this clever page turning thing, the best just got better. World's best video game machine just got better, yep. The most advanced video game system, best value, new titles available now, exclusive previews of hot new Lynx titles. And that's the main thing of this, because some of these games that were in here, a lot of which never ended up coming out actually, I was so excited about, as I'll lead on to in a moment. So again, it's the Lynx 2 on the cover, but this time with Checkered Flag on there, and it promotes it as a free magazine. So let's go into it. So no intro or anything in this, it just goes straight into the games. So we've got some sort of showcase games there at the front with Hard Driving and Stun Runner, both absolutely amazing examples of what the Lynx could do. Perennial favourite Slime World. Then we've got a nice big review stroke preview of Scrapyard Dog, which shows the first 3 levels, which is quite cool. There we've got Turbo Sub, which as you'll see is now a third-person game, which is how it was released. Warbirds, both get full pages each. Full page for Checkered Flag, I suppose it's the cover game in many respects. Actually, I just want to return to that cover for a moment. Something I forgot to mention is, we were talking about Vindicators for the first, the Lynx Log 1. If you look carefully on here, you'll see it just about here, especially, is the box art for Vindicators, which shows how close it was considered to release, because they had actually produced boxes. Well, not boxes, but the box art, the finished box art is there. Whereas none of the other unreleased games have finished box art. None. It's only Vindicators that does. So, more stuff here. So, scorching new lineup. On the links there at the top is actually Viking Child, but I don't think it mentions Viking Child at all anywhere, but that's a screenshot of Viking Child. Crystal Mines 2, of course. Cabal. No screenshot of the game. They've just kind of shoved the skull icon, which is from the arcade flyer, onto the Lynx screen. So Cabal must have not even been started at that point. A couple of, well, actually it's the same screenshot repeated there, actually, is 720 down the bottom. 720 was definitely worked on. We don't know exactly how far it got, but Scott D. Williamson, who was head of Lynx software at Atari Lombard, said that he played the Lynx version of 720, that it was very good. He's talked about it. Scott, of course, did Stun Runner, Toki and Road Blasters for the Lynx. Very, very, very talented programmer indeed. And he's actually released quite a lot of old Lynx stuff into the public domain for people to play and stuff, some demos and all sorts of things like that. And he does have a prototype of 720, though for some reason he's not released it, despite promising that he would. But he said it was very, very, very simple, where you were just in the centre of the screen and you could just spin round, basically, on the skateboard, and there was nothing else to it. So, yeah, shame that it's never properly got released. Dirty Larry, I remember being very excited by this big Dirty Larry preview across the centre pages. Because looking at it, it looked suspiciously like Final Fight. Levels, like the underground subway level there. This one in the boss's hideout, they look a lot like Final Fight. It even said the final conflict down the bottom, which made me think of Final Fight, obviously, as well. So what else we got? Lynx Casino, Awesome Golf Tournament Cyberball. And then on the other side is Basket Brawl, Cybots, and World Class Soccer. I like that they put the screenshot there of Cybots with him blowing the smoke off the gun. And actually, you'll notice that the games that aren't out, or the others say, some of them say out now, some of them don't, which is strange. But others say when they're going to come out. So, for example, their Basketball says February 92, Cybots says January 92, but in almost all cases, the predicted release dates of the games are completely wrong, because Lynx games never seem to come out when they said they would. And the Jaguars suffered the same problem. There's NFL football, which is a big name game for Atari in America. They even advertised it at halftime in the Super Bowl, and they did a special Super Bowl pack for America. It only came out in North America, which is quite sought after now. The game itself, though, is terrible. It's one of the worst Lynx games, quite easily, in my opinion. Hockey there. I never understood why they just called it hockey. Such a boring name. Toki, Baseball Heroes, not particularly great. Relief Pictures better. The other Lynx baseball game. Geo Duel again there. So never released, sadly. Raiden, which it does kind of show something on the screen, which looks to be a screenshot from, I think, the Mega Drive version. Certainly not the Lynx version, because the Lynx version is played vertically. You have to turn the Lynx on its side to play it, to make use of the long screen. So it's got like a tape display like the arcade had, which is very, very cool. But I was really excited for Raiden. It says June 92, and it came out, ended up being an aftermarket release by Telegames, sadly. Great shame. There's Hyperdrome, I say, now under the correct title, because it was called Grid Runner in the last one. That says January 92, and again, that was aftermarket. There's Rolling Thunder, 3 screenshots for it there. Hydra, Pit Fighter, very, very early version of Pit Fighter. You can see, because literally all it shows in the screenshot, there is the crowd. There's nothing, no sprites in the actual screen. That was the one I was most excited about. I actually pre-ordered Pit Fighter. I think it's the only game I can think of that I ever pre-ordered. I had it set up with a company called Games Galore, for absolutely ages, as a pre-order, because I wanted it so badly, because I loved the arcade game so much. It ended up being loads later. It says March 92. I think it was about that, but early 93 it came out, so I think it was a year late, if I remember rightly. And then on the back we've got Turbo Sub and some blurb about what the Lynx can do. So, for example, talking about how many colours it can display, the fact it does scaling, the backlight for the Lynx 2. So it talks about all the different features of the Lynx, of the Lynx 2 especially. So that's really cool. So there we go. That is it. That's all there is to talk about, really. Brilliant catalogues, especially the Lynx Log 2. Love it so much. So glad to have it back with all my Lynx games and in my collection, because the Lynx is my favourite system, as many people know. I hope you enjoyed my look at the Lynx Log 1 and 2, and I thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again for another video very soon. Bye bye.